It is impossible to underestimate the shock, a sense of stunned disbelief.
The market broke very sharply, and a lot of people were wiped out with it. It was very painful.
The poverty was really all around us. It was really, really pitiful.
The crash was followed by a depression that spread across the world, lasted for a decade, and was a prelude to war.
When the stock market went down to nothing, there was people jumping out of 2-story, 3-story buildings in New York. That's what we heard anyway, just jumping out that had probably quite a bit of stock. I was quite young. I think probably word of mouth, probably as much as reading it. Everything went to pieces, just right now. That's the way I remember it anyway.
Why do you think they called it the crash? I mean, it's really an airborne collapse metaphor. You can't crash if you're never left the ground. And it's not like a crack up where you're on the ground and you collide into something else. Rather, it's, the plane fell.
But certainly in the cities, it was very prosperous. People were making fortunes on the stock market. And then all of a sudden, poof, it went. I mean, economists, very serious economists, had been saying that we'd reached a new level, a new plateau of prosperity in this country, and we were never going to go back. And then the crash happened.
There was no infrastructure then. There was no Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to guarantee people's deposits. There was no way to back up the banks. So if the banks had made bad choices, you as a depositor paid for it. You went to go get your money, it wasn't there. And then people would hear that the bank down the street wasn't good, and they worried about their own bank, and then that would cause a run on their bank. And it became a terrible, vicious cycle. And something like 3,000 banks closed in the following couple of years after that. The whole financial system then seemed not just unstable, but worthless.
These were the Depression years. In Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, Nebraska, and Kansas, enormous numbers of people were being dispossessed of their small farms through a combination of bad farming practices and harsh winds that blew away the topsoil, creating a so-called dust bowl in these regions. Tens of thousands of families made the long trek to California in search of agricultural work and a better life. But their hopes met a harsh reality.
No, it was terrible. I know when I started farming, I sowed alfalfa south the house a ways and had the ground nice and smooth, And my wife had just cleaned house, and the hell of a dust storm come up, and you guys should have seen her house, and it just made her sick, And it even blew seed out of the ground. Of course, you didn't plant it very deep, but in the yard, then there was a little alfalfa come over all over.
Some people maybe not realize how bad it was. Between the tumbleweeds and the dust, it piled up along fence rows. Fence rows would just actually pile up. Well, of course, when the crops didn't grow, there were many tumbleweeds around. And of course, when the winds came along, it'd blow the tumbleweed somewhere. And the fence row would be the place where it would stop. Well, now it was also blowing dust. And the dust would commingle with the tumbleweeds, It wasn't a pleasant sight.
According to the tables which we have assembled, it is our estimate that 4% of the American people own 85% of the wealth of America. Now, how are you going to feed the balance of the people? What's Morgan and Baruch and Rockefeller and Mellon going to do with all that grub? They can't eat it. They can't wear the clothes. They can't live in the house. Give them a yacht. Give them a palace. Send them to Reno and give them a new wife when they want it. If that's what they want.
As long as the old mill was there, we'd kept on hoping. We'd kept our eyes on it. Maybe they'll reopen, maybe next month. But when they cut those smokestacks out of the sky, we had nothing to look at anymore.
Unemployment was caused by an uprise of new technology. Many factory workers lost their jobs and felt there was no other work suitable for them. By 1933, every 1 in 4 people could not find any jobs.
The jobless became the homeless. Shanty towns, makeshift communities of shacks constructed from wooden crates, tar paper, and cardboard sprang up. Disillusioned citizens called them Hoovervilles, after the president.
Republican President Herbert Hoover campaigned for re-election, only to find that everywhere he went, his name had become synonymous with failure. Shanty towns of unemployed men were now called Hoovervilles. Newspapers were Hoover blankets, empty pockets, Hoover flags.
The very first task of this country is to see that no man, woman, or child shall go hungry.
It was said of Hoover that even dogs took an instinctive dislike to him.
We have yet to go a long ways into capture.
And in the 1932 campaign, one man wired him, vote for Roosevelt and make it unanimous.
The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. This nation is asking for action, and action now. Our greatest primary task is to put people to work. Happiness lies not in the mere possession of money. It lies in the joy of achievement, in the thrill of creative effort, the joy, the moral stimulation of work. Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
My dear friends, that among other things in the National Union for Social Justice, we are Christian insofar as we believe in Christ's principle of love your neighbor as yourself, and with that principle, I challenge every Jew in this nation to tell me that he does not believe in it.
My friends, I want to talk for a few minutes with the people of the United States about banking. The new law allows the 12 Federal Reserve banks to issue additional currency on good assets, and thus the banks that reopen will be able to meet every legitimate call. Another question that you will ask is this: why are all the banks not to be reopened at the same time? The answer is simple, and I know you will understand it. Your government does not intend that the history of the past few years shall be repeated. We do not want and will not have another epidemic of bank failure.